I was so ready to enjoy this Raw. When we start off with the Sasha Banks stuff, and then, we get into the Ricochet and Drew McIntyre match, which was absolutely awesome. I was very, very ready to enjoy watching this Raw, but after the first 30 minutes, the next 2.5 hours took a downhill swing. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Welcome to your Enhancement Talent review for Monday Night Raw, August 26, 2019. The show started with Sasha Banks opening ahead of her match with Natalya, which was announced earlier in the night on social media platforms that we would see Sasha Banks back in action against Natalya, even though Natalya's been in a sling and was supposed to have some sort of elbow injury. I guess she's okay now. But Sasha gets in the ring to cut a promo, even addresses the reports of her taking her ball and going home, even as far as laying on the locker room floor crying and all that. And she says that she did, but the reason why was because she was relegated to a tag team match that she did not care about, while Becky Lynch was main eventing and making more money than she was. So, they gave you some motivation there. It still hasn't quite gotten to the old boss Sasha Banks from the heyday in NXT, but they haven't ruined it yet, so that's a plus. Natalya runs in, and they have a pull-apart brawl. And that was all there was for that segment. After that, we got the Street Marks, the Street Narrators. They have a segment announcing the 8-team tag team turmoil match, where the winners will take on Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins for the tag team titles at Clash of Champions. But yet, the Street Profits did not announce themselves to be in this match. So, they announced 8 teams, including some SmackDown teams like Heavy Machinery, and even the thrown together team that we've never seen, Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. We'll have more on that later. Ricochet versus Drew McIntyre, King of the Ring tournament. This was the only thing worth watching on this show. Some really fun spots in this match. There was McIntyre catching Ricochet when Ricochet was going for a reverse Rana. McIntyre catches him into a reverse Alabama Slam. Ricochet at one point catching and deadlifting McIntyre out of the air and lifting him into a Northern Lights suplex. And the best looking spot, though, I love this, when Ricochet comes flying, jumping off the steel steps at Drew McIntyre, and McIntyre catches him in midair with a Glasgow kiss. After that, McIntyre tries to get him in the ring. He tries to finish him off, but Ricochet ends up battling back when McIntyre throws Ricochet onto the top rope, which you can see the clinical error there. You would want to keep Ricochet away from the ropes. So McIntyre throws Ricochet onto the top rope, and Ricochet jumps off and hits the recoil, followed by a 630, and gets the win. And, big win for Ricochet. McIntyre was the pick for a lot of people, including all 3 of the people in the last weeks on Raw that made predictions, with Booker T, Renee Young, and Michael Cole all predicting Drew McIntyre to win. I said last week that was the kiss of death for him. And I much prefer Ricochet winning, honestly. Like, I figured Drew would win, and I figured he'd go to the finals. But I'm much more into Ricochet as a possible King of the Ring than McIntyre, personally. McIntyre, I just don't get the feel that they're gonna ever really pull the trigger on him. He'll always be there as someone who can be a foil as a heel, but they have something more in Ricochet that they can really build up throughout some some wins in this tournament, even if he doesn't win. We had another corny Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman segment. Braun ends up challenging Seth to a Universal title match at Clash of Champions, and Seth accepts. And then immediately after, and I mean immediately after, they go to commentary, and they showed the graphic for this match. So their graphics department works quick. They had that graphic ready in 2 seconds after the match was announced. We have Baron Corbin versus The Miz in the King of the Ring tournament. This was the one that I was joking about. You know, it's going to be a real barn burner. Miz versus Baron Corbin. And, you know, it's about as good of a match you could expect Miz versus Baron Corbin to be. Miz tried his hardest, but and I mean like he did a lot of good stuff in this, and he tried his hardest to get the babyface portion of that match. But, you know, babyface Miz just doesn't do it for me, personally, especially with how ice cold he has been and all of the blunders that have been made in his direction since turning babyface with 2 straight losses to Shane McMahon and being an outsider since then. He just hasn't had the focus. Corbin kicks out of a skull-crushing finale. Miz goes for a springboard, but Corbin ducks, gets him into the end of days for the win. So Corbin will go on to face Cedric Alexander in the second round, and if they decide not to do anything stupid, then we should have a Cedric Alexander versus Ricochet semifinal on the Raw side, which would be an awesome match. I can guarantee you that would be freaking a fantastic match. But I can also guarantee you that Baron Corbin will probably win, and they'll probably use that as Ricochet's final step, because they can't help themselves with this Baron Corbin guy. We had Bayley versus Nikki Cross. This was the embodiment of a pointless match. I don't know why they were there. I don't know why it happened, but Bayley won. Both of these women are champions, by the way. Nikki's tag team partner, Alexa Bliss, was nowhere to be seen, but Bayley pins one half of the tag team champions. And, you know, the one logic gap I find here is that with Bayley and Sasha, and how that ended, and with Sasha disappearing after the loss of the women's tag titles. So the excuse you could have for there not being a follow-up when Sasha comes back is that Bayley's on SmackDown. They're separated by brand. They can't see each other. But when you have them on the same show, because of this wild card nonsense, there's logic holes that nothing would have happened between Bayley and Sasha during this show. We get the tag team turmoil match, and this is where things really took a turn for the worst. We start off with the Viking Raiders, so, you know, I wrote here in my notes, so we'll finally have a match of meaning with the Viking Raiders. But, boy, did I not know where we were going. We start off with the B team versus the Viking Raiders, so you know how that went. The Viking Raiders win handily. Then, next are the OC, Gallows and Anderson. And all 4 guys are beating the hell out of each other. Gallows and Anderson are coming in fired up. They're beating Eric and Ivar all over the place. They're going back and forth. They're like it's like a tornado tag almost, because there's as the two guys are fighting in the ring, you have two other guys fighting outside the ring, or all four fighting in the ring at once. So it was kind of fun. Until things got out of hand, and the referee double disqualifies them to eliminate both teams. I don't know. I feel like that fucking meme from Malcolm in the Middle with Dewey. I expect nothing, and I'm still disappointed. How? Who? Why? Why? Why are we going to have a double disqualification just to avoid someone having to take a pin? And this is what WWE gets so stuck in, that they have to, that the Viking Raiders, they haven't had a loss on the main roster yet. So they're focused on protecting them, which is great in theory. But when you do this in order to protect them, then it puts them on the, in purgatory almost. They're not good enough that you want them to be tag team champions, but you also don't want them to lose. So then it comes into this just middle ground where you have to book yourself into a corner and find a way out of matches like this. I say go big or go home, man. Like, if you want to push the Viking Raiders, have them win the fucking match. If you don't want them to be in the tag team title match, let them lose. You could have had them go through a few teams and then Gallows and Anderson take them out, or whoever takes them out, and still make them look good in the process. But you go too far with trying to protect people that you realistically have shown no sign that you have any interest in doing anything with. The Viking Raiders have done nothing but have squash matches. They've had no in-depth anything. They've had no big matches, and this was really their biggest chance to make an impact. Even if you end up losing, if they could have had a good showing and run through 5 teams or something, then you could have had something there. But instead, you're so focused on not having them take a loss that you have to book around that and then come to this stupid double disqualification finish. Absolutely lame. Lame as hell. So now the next two teams come in. We get Rude and Ziggler against the Lucha Bros, or the Lucha Brothers, or whatever. I don't want to get them confused for Pentagon and Phoenix. Ziggler quickly eliminates one of them with the super kick. There you go. Then the Revival come out. And we have the Revival, who are an established team, and for many years have been paired together and put on tag team clinics, but yet here they are and they lose to the not tag team of Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode, as Roode pins Dawson with a glorious DDT. Cool. Next we had Hawkins and Ryder, who get beaten quickly. Of course they do. And so now Ziggler and Roode have run through 3 teams, and there's only one left, and it's Heavy Machinery, who are the SmackDown team. And this is so freaking backwards, because you have Roode and Ziggler, who are the heels, I'm assuming, go through the gauntlet. And they've run through 3 straight teams, and they're going for the 4th to win the match. And then the baby faces are the ones coming in to try to put an end to it. It's supposed to be the other way around, man. Like, you're supposed to have the baby faces. Like, you could have done the same thing and had Heavy Machinery get more over in the process if you have them run through a few teams and, get the crowd interested in Heavy Machinery possibly winning. But instead you do it ass backwards, and Heavy Machinery are trying to take out the fighting through the gauntlet Rude and Ziggler. So Rude and Ziggler end up winning this. They win 4 straight. And, Last week, my title for the Raw review was WWE Sacrifice the Tag Team Division for Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins. Now, this week, they've already sacrificed them. It's already dead. But they just keep poking it and stabbing it some more. They took a non-team, threw them together, and now they are going to be challenging Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins for the tag team titles, which also mean nothing. And, it's to the point, like, they need to just merge the tag team divisions. They're, like, the 2 sets of belts, they just can't support that with the teams that they have. And it's no man's land right now. Like, there's no really over teams at this point, Like, the Usos, we haven't seen them for obvious reasons. The New Day, they're always over to an extent. But other than that, like, Heavy Machinery were put in the match against Bryan and Rowan, couldn't get the job done, and since then they've kind of been lost. Rude and Ziggler are just together out of nowhere. The Luchas, the Lucha House Party, whatever. I don't know why I wanted to call them the Lucha Bros, but yeah, the Lucha House Party. But all those guys, like, they're nothing, and they've been treated like nothing. But now Rude and Ziggler come in, not teaming together once before, just thrown together last minute. Ziggler being the guy who we've seen in the past just like 2 weeks destroyed by Goldberg in a minute and change, beaten senseless by The Miz, beaten by Roman Reigns, but now you put him in the tag team division and all of a sudden he's better than all of them. Sasha Banks versus Natalya. Sasha throws Natty around a bit, including launching her into Mike Rome's office chair in the ringside area, and then into the post. She gets her back in the ring, puts Natty in the bank statement, and uses Natty's injured arm for leverage, pulling on her neck to add to the choke, and that puts Natalya into submission. And then she goes back into the ring and puts on the bank statement again for good measure. Not really much to say about this, I guess. I mean, it's doesn't really do much for me. I mean, I feel bad that Natalya is just such an afterthought, but it is what it is. No Becky Lynch or anything coming in. After this, we had Cesaro versus Cedric Alexander. This match was good. I'll give this match some love too. This was the second best thing on the show, and those were probably the only 2 good things on the show. And this is a non-King of the Ring tournament match with Cedric Alexander competing in the tournament next week. And so, and I appreciated this from Corey Graves, because before the match started, he says that he talked to Cesaro earlier, and he told him that his motivation for this match was, if Cedric gets injured, someone has to take his place in the tournament. So you have some sort of stakes going into the match. You have a purpose for it, which every match should have some sort of purpose. And so that played into the story of this match. Cesaro's goal was not to beat Cedric Alexander. Cesaro's goal was to injure Cedric so bad that he would not be able to compete next week and that Cesaro could take his spot. And that played into the match perfectly as Cesaro heavily targets the knee and Alexander does a great job selling it. They do all sorts of stuff like the half crabs and everything targeting the knee until eventually Alexander battles out. He slingshots Cesaro out of the ring to the floor, which gives him enough time to recover and get up and hit the lumbar check for the win. I give it a thumbs up. Nothing to complain about there, and it'll give Cedric a knee injury to sell next week probably, which hopefully he wins and overcomes it against Baron Corbin, and it can be a really good moment for Cedric. Because, Corbin is a made man, honestly. Like, the amount of stock that they've put into him, there's nothing he will really gain by winning against Cedric. Whereas Cedric, you can help establish a new star with him beating Corbin and then having a match with Ricochet. That could be really fun. So, I'm very hopeful that that's what they'll do. I'm also very pessimistic that Corbin will just win. The Street Profits have another backstage bit where Braun Strowman seemingly walks through a garage door to pass them. And this is the only reason I even noted this, is because the way they shot this, there was no door, there was no locker room or anything that Braun Strowman would have walked through when the camera panned to him. So, he was clearly just standing there waiting for his cue. So, whoever directed that segment, shame. Alright, well, I'm to the main event already. I'm surprised I'm getting through this so quick. But, AJ Styles versus Braun Strowman for the United States Championship. This is the second week in a row we've gotten this match, and it's the second week in a row we're going to get a fucked finish. We have a ref bump, AJ brings in a chair, the OC run in, and Cole says that Seth Rollins isn't here tonight, even though we saw him earlier. Braun takes out everyone in the OC, the ref gets up as Braun Strowman gets the chair. AJ pulls the old Eddie Guerrero, flops on the ground with Braun holding the chair, and then the ref says, "Oh, I heard it, and I see you holding the chair, and I'm not going to pay attention to these OC members that are laid out right beside me, which means they clearly ran in, so I'm going to disqualify you, Braun Strowman." What a thrilling conclusion to this week's Monday Night Raw. Another disqualification. Another one. And this was your main event. I'm so... You guys were doing so good. I liked the last couple Raws. I really liked the King of the Ring match this week with Ricochet and Drew McIntyre. But then you end on this. And don't give me they needed a way to get out of this. You can't have Braun Strowman lose, and you don't want AJ Styles to lose the United States title. They had to do something. Yeah, they had to do something. It's called don't book the fucking match. If you don't have a finish, then just don't book it. Nobody is forcing you to make Braun Strowman versus AJ Styles for the United States Championship for the second week in a row. You are doing it because you want a cheap ratings ploy so you can be able to say, hey, There's a United States Championship match. You gotta tune in. Something might happen. As if we really believe that Braun Strowman is going to be the United States Champion and the Tag Team Champion and challenging for the Universal Championship at the pay-per-view. Yeah, they're going to put all the frickin' belts on Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman. They're just going to rule over everyone in all of the Raw roster. They're going to have all the titles. This was a disaster of an ending. This was an overall very lackluster show with a couple of bright spots. I don't understand at all why they thought that they could end the show like this. It's just and it's not just like driving people to watch the show, but it's like they want to give you a main event title match to entice you to stay through the third hour. And so they think if they put a title match there, then you'll stay. But that's where WWE fails, is that anything they promote has no credibility. Because it's not like it hasn't been like them to false advertise. It's not like it hasn't been like them to get a shitty DQ finish to end a show on. It just doesn't make sense. And, I'm hopeful that Ricochet will end up facing Cedric Alexander in the final, and we can have that. Ricochet versus Samoa Joe we'll have next week, I assume. Their United States title match was really good, so I'd expect to see more of the same. Joe can be a doormat again. Hopefully, Baron Corbin will lay down for Cedric Alexander, and we can get that. And then on the SmackDown side tomorrow, we're going to have Buddy Murphy versus Ali, which I think is going to be a barn burner of a match. Just this Raw show, I don't see why you couldn't just close with Ricochet versus McIntyre. Put the King of the Ring tournament at the forefront. If you don't have something that is sufficient enough, which you clearly didn't this week with this ending of Braun Strowman and AJ Styles for the second straight week in a DQ finish, then let Ricochet and McIntyre main event. They put on a great match, and it would have left us happy. Instead, I'm sat here boiling over a stupid Raw finish. That's not what I want to do. I want to be happy with Raw. But that's all we have. I'm surprised this went only just under 30 minutes. But, that we get in, we say what we got to say, and we get out. I ain't got much more to say on this. Tomorrow we'll have the SmackDown live, including what I expect to be a great match with Ali and Buddy Murphy, and the shenanigans of the Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns storyline. Will we see more from Eric Rowan's doppelganger? I would like if SmackDown opens tomorrow and Roman, Daniel Bryan, and not Rowan are just all still sitting in that same locker room, just still staring at each other. I think that would be a great way to start the show. That's all I got. I'll be back here tomorrow. See you then.